Welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor, everybody. Well, I thought what I'd do today is just a quick demo. I've been asked a lot about painting water, and I've kind of hesitated because that's a pretty complex subject. It really is very environmental. However, moving water or waterfalls is probably one of the easiest things to paint. I mean, essentially you have to decide, and you can see I've got a quick little sketch here. You have to decide where the water is going. In this case, I got a little waterfall here, a little waterfall here, a slight pool, and another little small one here. This would be like a little waterfall you'd get in a mountain stream somewhere, maybe. It's very small. So they're really easy to paint because basically you just don't paint them. I mean, in watercolor, you have to leave white, and almost every photo you see of a waterfall, they're white. But I'll show you a few things to keep in mind when you paint them, and I'm just going to paint this very, very, very simply. And what you do is, however you want to paint the surroundings, you do that. Now I'm just going to wet the area around this water and paint the rocks first. Kind of block that in. And I'm probably going to stay fairly neutral gray. Most of the time when you're in a mountain creek or mountain scene, it is pretty neutral. Most of the rocks are fairly gray. So I'm not worrying a lot today about color. So what I'm going to do is just start blocking these in with some very neutral colors. I'm going to start with my midtones. This might make a fairly decent rock painting tutorial also. So, but I'm not paying a whole heck of a lot of attention to color. I'm probably going to tackle, there's some intervening rocks in here. I'll probably tackle that next after this is dry. Go ahead and pop that one in there. Okay, I'm going to grab a smaller brush and just go ahead and block in the center rocks. I'm not going to worry about wet on wet there. Okay, I'm just trying to get some fairly nondescript rock shapes going here. Alright, so I'm going to let that dry. We'll come back to it. Alright, so this is dry now, and I'm just going through and adding some darks just to define these a little more as rocks. Trying to keep this part fairly stylized, just really not part of the lesson here, but and I'm trying to keep it quick and simple. Get too carried away with these rocks because I actually like painting rocks in detail, and I can easily get carried away. Flat brushes are really great for painting rocks. Get those nice little angular shapes. And you can keep them very simple. The key here, though, is all of this area. And I like to save that part to last. This is where my water is flowing. And I'll show you in a minute just exactly how easy all that is. All right, so that's enough fiddling. I'm going to switch to a round. The number 10 round. And I'm going to get just a little more blue. Now, generally, water is just a reflection of surroundings. But, you know, there are some things that kind of help you determine it's water. Now, I'm keeping this still very neutral, but I'm going to make it a little more blue. The idea is that unless you're in a really dense kind of forest, streams kind of create an opening in the leaves and in the forest, and so you get some reflection. So we're going to have a little bit of blue. Now, I have two bases. I have a little pool here, and you want to keep right around the base. You want to keep that kind of white for some frothy foam and stuff like that. Same here. So the base is actually here, and the base is actually here, but I'm leaving a little extra room there. And I could do this wet and wet. I consider doing this wet and wet and wetting all this and making it soft. But I think what I'm going to do is keep it hard and go back and soften the edges after it's dry. So what you've got, and this is something you want to be careful with and not overdo it. You have these little cone shapes going down where the water just kind of spreads, and they get wider and more dispersed at the bottom. And the top of a waterfall is the whitest part. And I think I'm starting out just a little bit too dark. Less is more, and this will dry lighter. So see how as you get to the bottom, they widen out a little bit. And you don't have to do it even, you know, where maybe it's a little frothier and more agitated. You can leave that white. And again, here is where it gets kind of frothy and doesn't really foam, but you know, it's good to put some color down there so that white stands out. And then as you get closer to the shore or to the edge of the creek or the river, darker reflections will usually take over. You just need to get some photos and look, you know, and see. And down here, maybe where the water is really divided, you can see through and get some nice little dark recesses where you can see through it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a stiff bristle brush, and I'm going to come back and soften some of that. This is actually an oil painting brush. I use it for lifting, but it works great for softening edges. If you've got crappy paper, you're not going to be able to do this very well. I'm just sorry to tell you. So much Depends on good paper. You don't have to soften them all, but you know, sometimes waterfall, and you've seen those time-lapse waterfall pictures where it all just looks very cottony. And I'm just very, very softly blending this. Or softening the edges. I think actually I can probably bring that down, create a little more contrast here. This probably wouldn't be all that agitated or white. If the water ever gets to a point where it's still enough, then it will reflect the sky or surroundings. And that's just a very basic waterfall. Now, I think if I'm finishing this off, this little study, I re-wet this part up here and add some distant darker foliage. And that'll help that really pop off too. So I want to make it very soft, so I'm going to pre-wet this. I need to add a little bit of pigment that's not quite so runny here. This is very wet and it's going to dry very light. But I think you get the idea. Okay. This is really a study. And I'm going to soften some of these outer edges so it looks a little more spray and dispersed. Looks like it's not quite so hard. That's looking better. I'll soften those outer edges. That really makes it look like it's going psst, hitting rocks and spraying around. And once you've done with all your little tones and softening and whatnot, if you want to, you can use a gel pen and add some little glistening effects. You don't have to. I mean, this just makes it, you know, like if there's a rock there, you can put a little highlight there, or you can add some very like fine little streams like this if you want to. That's getting pretty detailed. And I think, you know, it was probably okay before, but that kind of adds, being a very small little waterfall, that kind of adds a couple nice little spicy flavors to it here and there. But before I overdo it, I think we're going to call that one done. Thanks, everyone. This was a help to you. Hope you give me a thumbs up and a subscribe. And thank you, Patreon supporters, for helping me make this program possible. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.